Welcome to Let Them Hear podcast. This is a podcast for anyone wanting to grow in their faith, family, or finances. Our objective here is to gift listeners with sound advice, sound doctrine, and a sound opinion to anyone who has ears to hear. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Let Them Hear podcast. This is your host, Brittany Baer, and I am here today with my fabulous friend. You say fabulous all the time. So. My fabulous friend, Trevor Babajan. Trevor is a firefighter, a hunter, a welder, a tree person. I don't know what you call those, but he is a father. He's just a man. And introduce yourself, Trevor, to the people.
My name is Trevor Babajan. I was born and raised in rural Northern California. I'm 32. I have awesome wife named Anna. We've been together since 2017, and then we have an adorable baby girl. Not baby anymore, I guess she's a toddler. 2.5-year-old
That's still
Elena
a baby.
Jade. Yeah, basically.
That's
but
still a baby.
Yeah, and life's been pretty good.
Awesome. Well, I'm so happy to have Trevor here today. Here's the main reason why. So I had his wife on recently because she's a great friend of mine and a colleague. And we got to talking about relationships in the middle of her skincare podcast. and Anna about froze and fell out of her chair and was like, please don't ask me any more questions about this. And she's just more timid and shy about that stuff. But I know firsthand, because I've been around you guys, that you guys have a really healthy relationship. Not perfect, because nobody has a perfect relationship, but a healthy relationship, right? You guys communicate really
100%.
well. There's spark, all the fun things. And so 9 times out of 10, if you're hanging out with Trevor and Anna, you're like, for the love of God, can somebody stop touching the other person? And we don't have to.
Usually it's me. She's slapping my hand.
Definitely true.
Yeah.
But I was just like, oh, that would be really cool to have Trevor on to be able to ask him some questions, because I'm sure there's not only men who are seeking to improve in this area, right? But also women who want to believe it even exists.
And women who want to find someone probably a little bit like me. Yeah.
That's it. So I guess I'll start out by just kind of asking you, what does a healthy relationship look like to you? What does your relationship look like with, your wife in terms of general overall health? Do you feel like, I guess my question would be do you feel like there's specific things that you do often with your wife to keep spark alive, to keep connection alive? Or is it something you just are like, oh, we just randomly have, chemistry and it works?
Yeah. I'll preface everything with I didn't go to school for relationships. I didn't go to school for psychology.
Not why you're here. We don't really like those people.
But I do have experience with horrible relationships, years of, I don't want to say horrible, but years of unhealthy relationships.
Right.
That allowed me to, I guess, grow and mature into the husband and father and protector that I am now.
Right.
And so during those years of not so great relationships, I learned, probably during those years of not so good relationships and seeing friends or family who didn't have good relationships, I was able to learn about what I wanted mine to look like in the future. And I can't remember if I was with Anna when I developed the 3C thing that we kind of live by.
I love this. Tell me more. I don't know what to think about
or
this.
if I had already figured it out beforehand and I just didn't. I can't really remember. It was 2017 and I got too much stuff going on. But so we kind of, I'd like to say that we live by the 3 C's: communication, commitment, and compromise.
Love that.
And it's more in depth than communication. Oh, we talk. It's more than that.
What does it look like?
It's about body language. It's about how you handle tough conversations or arguments or fights. Now that we have a kid, it's how do I communicate with my kid?
Right.
The better I communicate with my kid, the better I'm probably going to communicate with my wife.
Right.
And the better I am to both of them.
And the better you communicate with your wife, the better example you're setting for your kid. So it's
and then commitment, obviously, it's not just being committed to one another. That's obvious.
Right.
You should already be committed to your spouse.
Right.
But it's being committed to working towards being a better person.
Right.
If you're not
that's good.
taking steps to make sure that you're a positive influence on your spouse or your significant other, then you're probably failing. You should probably do better.
Right.
If you're not committed towards staying healthy for yourself and your significant other, well, then chances are you probably have some work to do.
Right.
So there's a whole, litany of things that you could.
Says me last night to myself as I angrily pumped iron.
Oh yeah, get some.
I call it pumpkin iron. I was like, Brittany, you had a baby like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Get it together
Yeah.
and get it. But it was like one of those things where I'm like, okay, I could wait till January like every other person, but you're not basic.
Yeah.
So we're going to do it now. We're going to do it in
Yeah.
November
Yeah.
and get this cracking.
I mean, it's tough, but
Yeah.
like your all other aspects of your life will go better if
Absolutely.
you treat yourself well and work out.
Right. Well, and
You don't have to do
I feel
anything
like
crazy,
there's a
but-
bit of a reflection of how you actually view everyone else through it, because you're showcasing how you feel about yourself, right? When you don't take care of yourself, and it can look like physical health for sure, but it can also look like a lot of other things. I've seen people that are like, oh, I won't spend, obviously owning a day spa. I've had people say, well, I'll never spend the money to get a facial done on myself. I just don't spend money like that on myself. And it's like, oh, well, then you don't appreciate yourself or value yourself or think that you have, right, that worth. And so it really it speaks volumes when you don't take care of yourself mentally, physically, spiritually, all these things. And then that almost inevitably always ends up transferring on to other people because
The
if
rest
you,
of your life. and
right, if
everybody
you
else,
don't if you don't love yourself enough to do certain things, you can't give what you don't have, right?
Yeah.
I always say that, like, you can't impart what you don't have. So if it's confidence, stop trying to give somebody else confidence and be their cheerleader if you don't even believe in yourself, right? Because it won't work. It's just not going to stick. So it's the same thing goes when you're talking about health. But okay, so did we get to 2 of the C's or
one more.
One more.
And then compromise. And that one kind of is a little bit more self-explanatory, but it's like you compromise and everything. Like if you're arguing and you think that you're right, but maybe you're not or whatever. Compromise. Just lose. It's okay. It's
in
not a big
Jesus'
deal.
name, that was for me. Okay.
It's not a big deal.
That one was for me. I'm like, I'm a winner and I'm going to win.
Yeah. Like,
but I need to stop.
like, oh, it's my turn. I should probably do the dishes. I'll compromise. Like,
Right.
I already do tons of stuff outside around our property. But
Right,
like,
right.
my wife's been at work all day,
Right,
and she gets
right.
home at 7:30.
Right.
I'm gonna do the dishes,
Yeah.
and that's just another one of the things that you know.
Well, and that feels like even more than compromise. That almost feels like just expressing value for the person and what they did, right? So it's like you said, okay, she was at work all day. It's like you taking a moment to reflect and be like, though you are probably equally tired, and even if you were at home with the baby, that's exhausting. I have a 3-year-old, you know, but just pausing and going, okay, all that, and she just experienced this. So how do I now afford her an opportunity to relax and show her that I value what she just brought to the table, right? So yeah, I think that's like a twofold. It's like compromise and showing value.
Yeah. And luckily, like for my wife, like she loves what she does, so
Right.
I don't have to worry too much about her going to work and getting super stressed out.
Right.
But it's when
Thank
she
you. Thank you. His wife works with me, so that says a lot. Thanks.
Yeah. But you know, when she comes home to a dirty house, I kind of, you know, I feel bad. Like I suck.
Right.
Like there's plenty of things that I suck at, and I suck at, you know, cleaning the inside of the house. Like you should see my pile of laundry right now. Like my dresser is my catch-all for laundry and everything else that I do.
I got rid of it.
Yeah, I probably should do the same
Literally
thing.
last week. I wish I was joking. I was like, this has to go because this is actually serving no purpose other than catching clothes.
Yeah.
And so it was, and paperwork. So we took it, and Kurt said, my husband said the other day, oh my gosh, this is so annoying. I just realized that dresser really was the place that we put everything. And he's like, where do I put it now? Because I replaced it with like a nice sitting reading area, like a rocking chair, a mirror, and like a Christmas tree right now. You know, it's like holidays. And he's like, this is functional and I don't like it.
Yeah, instead of just, you know, throwing stuff on this table, you could probably like take an extra second and just find a place to put it away.
Correct. But likewise, I think it's interesting because we're talking about obviously like from a male perspective, you know, masculinity, but from a biblical perspective of worldview of a woman, right? Because I'm saying this having the understanding that people that are not believers are not going to have the same mindset, but from a biblical perspective of being a woman or a helpmeet to your husband, right? We're not talking about being a girlfriend or a side chick. We're talking about like when you're
being
married, bring a partner, right, to your husband and a helpmeet, which is what we're intended to do. There's, you know, all these verses talking about biblical submission, which is actually like a really empowering thing, but people usually take them out of context and think that they mean like you have no opinions and no, you know, thoughts. Yeah. But one of the things it says is like, it talks about submitting to your husband. And I started reading a book about it because I was like, I'm just really bad at this. It's just, I'm powerful. And I'm like, I didn't know that they could coexist, right? Yeah. It's like meekness is what, like strength bridled, right? So it's like how you could still have the power, but it's like knowing when to pull it out. And so anyway, I was reading this book. It was called Me Obey Him. It's like super old. I think this book was written in like the 60s or 70s. It was like written by a pastor's wife. But one of the things she talks about is that very thing. She says, you know, you're walking around your house, you're frustrated because there's stuff everywhere and your husband's socks are here and his shirt's over there and da-da-da. And she goes, how much time does it take for you to argue with him, right? To argue and this state your case of as to how agitating that is versus how long would it take you to just pick the sock up and go put it in the basket? And I was like, oh, that's annoying. It's so true.
And I think it's on both parts.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Because all the time I'm like, for example, I got off work one day or something and I got home and the dishes are still in the sink and she had to go to work. And it's like, well, I could whine about it or I could just do it.
Right.
You know, it's not that big of a deal.
Right.
I can cause, you know, a little riffle in our relationship or I could just handle it.
Right.
You know, and again, like we're not perfect. Like there's going to be days where she leaves them in there, I leave them in there, or whatever it is. It doesn't have to just be dishes, but you know, it's the same thing. It's like you just have to be, again, a good partner because otherwise it's not going to work out very well.
Right. Well, it's like I feel like that help meet is like it's twofold. It's not just, okay, you're here just to be this. It's like, no, actually because the man is supposed to be the covering for the wife. It says like, that essentially they're supposed to be ready to die for their wife, right? It's 100%. Like that's for So that that's from a biblical perspective. It says like love your wife as the way that Christ loved the church, and so you're supposed to basically be ready to die for them, right? And so I think that men, we've like lost that in the culture, and so I was like, I gotta have Trevor on here. Trevor knows you have that like on lock. That I really respect and value. So. I really respect and value that, and I think a lot of the people around you do, men and women alike. And it's not like a envy thing, like I love you, but I don't want to marry you. But it's like just an admiration that still exists in this current culture where men are being told that they're women. Men are being told that they're toxic. Men are being told that they're not of value, and the women are telling men, I don't need you, simultaneously, right, wanting a spouse, but then essentially saying it doesn't work.
No.
I'm like, listen to your words and listen to it just doesn't make sense.
You'll find a lot of that online, unfortunately.
And not just online. I mean, I've experienced it in my regular life with friends and family that swear that they want that, over everything. All I want is to be married. I want to just have a healthy marriage, or I want to have a godly marriage, or I want to have, right? So it's like cracks me up because I'm like, okay, here's the words, but then here's the actions.
Zero actions.
So it's like, I want a godly marriage, but I'm going to the club, to the casino, to the right? Or I want a man within the same breadth conversation saying, I don't need no man. I don't need nobody. I'm like, wait, what? You need to figure out what you want, homie. So I guess my question to you moving forward would be, how do you define masculinity in today's society?
That is a good question. I feel like it's a very broad question.
Yeah, I like broad questions.
How do I define masculinity in today's society? Let's see. I don't know if I can give it a definition, but I'll do my best. I think, like I mentioned earlier, where I worked on myself for years to be a good husband and father and protector. So I feel like you can't be a man in today's society unless you're willing to protect, whether it's your family members or your wife or your kid.
Right.
But there's a lot of people out there who think they're men, but if the shit ever hits the fan, they're probably not gonna be a real man. They're probably gonna be
throwing their wife in front of them.
Yeah, or maybe just taking steps that aren't necessarily the best for themselves and their family.
Right.
I think again, or on with that is you need to be able to be a positive influence on your family. There's probably plenty of stuff in the Bible that talks about the man being the leader of the house.
Yeah.
And
well, it's like headship,
yeah,
right?
And I think that's important. If you are mentally unstable, or if you are inconsistent with your actions, or if you are unable to be, like I said, a positive influence for your friends and family, then you're probably not being a very good man, or being very masculine.
Also, to add to what you said about like the headship part or the leading of the household, I always use this example, and by always, I literally had this conversation last night. I went to a friend of ours party, and I ended up talking to some people, and they were just talking about their faith and like not even the loss of the faith, which I found interesting. They weren't talking about losing faith in God. What they were saying is we have lost faith in the state of religion as a whole because they feel like women are suppressed and all these things. And so I was just listening, lending an ear, and one of the things that I explained, because the gal said, well, wait, are you saying that you think I should just say yes, like let him be right about this, even if I disagree? And I said, well, yeah.
To an extent, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, yeah. And she's like, I mean, but I hear from the Lord too, and I said, right, and you do, but who got tempted? It wasn't Adam, it was Eve, right? Like there's time after time again, you see these examples. Really, if you're going biblical, you see these examples of women who used their emotions to make decisions that actually didn't end up being for the best,
and
right?
It's still common, unfortunately.
Correct, because that we're made different, right? And so the way I explained it to her, I said, your husband, his goal, if he's doing well, which he is, in my estimation, from what I heard of the conversation, I was like, oh, he's just doing his job. He's protecting you. He's providing for you. He's concerned for your salvation, all the things that he should be doing, right? But I said, I own a business. The business is an S corp, right? So it's a service corporation. Every year I have to fill out paperwork for this business, submit it to attorneys, showcase who's doing what in the business. Mostly is just me. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
But at the top of it, it says CEO. There's only one line next to CEO. So I explain the household the same way. There can only be one CEO. Why? Because if I go to work and go to my business and I say, okay, everybody's allowed to be, you know what, I'm CEO, but you're going to be CEO number 2 and you're going to be CEO number 3, right? At that point, we're not going to run, the business can't run because there can only be one visionary, and then everybody has to come alongside that, right, for it to actually work well. But I think people have gotten so lost in that concept, and I don't know if it's, do you feel like it's like?
I agree to an extent, but I also feel like it isn't. So growing up, like, I love my parents to death, and they're still together, thankfully, because there was a lot of hardship in their relationship growing up, a lot of it.
How long they've been married?
I don't know, 30-ish years, maybe.
Cool.
Yeah, long time. But it was basically like my way or the highway.
Oh, okay.
And my dad got that from my grandpa.
Right.
And luckily, my grandma and grandpa did that very well. It was basically my way or the highway. And my dad tried that with my mom, and it just led to lots of turmoil, especially with 4 kids. I'm the baby of 4. And so I learned from that, like, I love that my wife is willing to listen to me about what we should do and how we should do it and this and that.
Right.
But, like, I am totally open to, oh, maybe we should try that. Okay. Yeah, let's try that. It goes back to the...
But that, okay, so that, I love that you said that, because it's so good, because I think so many people have had really toxic examples of what headship looks like in a relationship or in a marriage, not a relationship, right? But because if you're dating somebody, let me be clear, they should not be headship over you. Yeah. If you're like, right, like I'm talking about marriage. But when you're married, there's been so many bad examples of headship where somebody thinks that means I command you. I'm a dictator. I'm a business owner. I'm not a dictator.
Yeah.
I ask people's opinions on many things. But the end of the day, right, there's only one of us that makes the decision on what's going to actually happen. And so, like, the final decision, I should say. So I think to what you were saying about your dad, were there any examples that, like, you can think of and you can share or not, but like that maybe you realize, like, okay, perhaps he wasn't being as open as he should have been, or asking her opinion, in matters as much?
I think the examples would just literally be like my dad back in the day before he found God. Thankfully he did, and he's much better now. But way back in the day, I can't really think of an example that I can point to.
Right.
I can just remember that it was basically, no, like, we're doing this, or
Right.
you're doing this. Like,
Yeah.
there is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And
Right. That's not headship.
yeah, no, and that's
That's
why
dictatorship.
Yeah, and luckily I had that, you know, between their turmoil and relationship early on in life, and then me seeing other friends and or family members who had
Right.
hardships, where, you know, I learned from that, and you know, luckily I can put it forward now. And
Right.
you know, I post a lot of stuff on like Instagram about relationships and being a good husband or a father or whatever else, and that isn't like, I'm not posting that for most people. That's for people who want like a good relationship. You know,
Oh, I get it. Yeah.
the thing on social media now is like, people who post about their relationship probably don't have a good relationship.
Right.
Well,
Yeah, people say that.
Unfortunately, like, our relationship is actually pretty good.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think that just plays into.
Yeah, but I think it's different because you're providing content to encourage people in it. When I think of somebody saying like, oh, the people that post this the most, I've seen that in relationships, I've seen it in friendships, I've seen it in all sorts of things where I'm like, okay, we're posting something that's not rooted in reality. That is different than what you're doing, which is giving aid to people, talking about like certain issues, or giving like insight on how to achieve something. Those are different things than being like, I'm bragging about this. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. About relationships and or like going back to the masculine thing. Like, that's kind of how most of my social media is kind of played towards, I guess.
Yeah. You end up ruffling a lot of feathers on social media.
I do.
You're like me.
I do, but I also get a lot of good compliments behind the scenes. Like,
always. It's
like,
always
we're
behind,
like, man,
because
I really,
you're saying out loud what everyone's thinking.
I wish I was like you. And I'm like, well, there's a way to do that, and it's just to start being like me.
That's it.
Like, there's the old saying, there's a couple old sayings, like, birds of a feather fly together.
Right.
Or you are the average of the 5 people that you spend most
baby.
time with. Yeah. So going back to being a masculine person, or having, or say your friend that is unwilling or less likely to take part in a marriage where the man is leading the household.
Right.
What are her friends doing?
Right.
Most of them, well, probably a lot of them are in the relationship that you're describing. But if she's closer with other friends who don't have that relationship, who maybe they don't have the best relationships with her husband, she's less likely to want to be a part of that submissive marriage.
Right. Which is so funny because people use this terrible context as submission. And I'm like, you have to study it better, because if you studied it, you would understand that biblical submission is not a negative thing. It's actually a really powerful position to be in, but you would have to like go through the studies to actually have a better understanding of that. Obviously, anything you look at it with a wide brush stroke, it could be like, I don't know about that one, and especially in this culture, which I always say, okay, well, how far has that got us? Like, how far has like women's lib really got us? When we think about it now, we don't even have people in 2-parent homes anymore. We don't even have people. Most of the men don't even think they're men. I mean, we literally have people that are confused about their gender. Like, this is craziness.
Yeah.
So this hasn't, what started as, okay, we want to be able to leave the home and we want to be able to actually go out into the working force. That started there, and then now it's escalated, and people have since taken everything out of context in terms of like submission, and they've been, that's terrible, that's just ignorance, that's all these things. And what's even worse is like, from on my end, like when I'm talking with people or listening or pastoring them or in any capacity, I have a lot of people that'll say like women of the church that are like, I don't want to submit, and I'm like, huh? Like I'm like, are you sure you believe in this? Like, but anyway, there was a point to what I was saying, and it escaped my brain, so we'll just move on.
And I think, like, unfortunately, a lot of the negativity, whether it's something that you viewed growing up, you're going to have a bunch of, oh, I remember, or maybe not. It might not even be something that you remember specifically, like I don't remember with my dad or whatever. But it's like something where you remember there's something in your brain that remembers a bad relationship, who was submissive, and you don't want to be a part of that. And unfortunately, negativity usually garners more attention than positivity.
Always.
Like, if you look anywhere on any kind of social media, the videos or the memes or the pictures or anything like that gets the most attention is probably going to be the negative stuff or the horrible stuff.
Always.
You post a picture of how adorable your wife is or how pretty she is or how awesome your relationship is. It's not going to get as many views. It's not going to get as many likes.
Or just like shock value too. Like people like people like things that even if it's not necessarily what you're saying is bad, but if it's like just truth, because people literally are so deceived that truth is now shocking, and you say that out loud and people are like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of shock value to proclaiming to the world that you love your wife,
right,
or that you love the job that you do, or
right, right. So you had said something about women being the sum total, not just women, men as well, but being the sum total of the 5 people that you're around the most. And I love that you brought that up, because it came to my head how I realized more recently I am doing a discipleship program, and there's like a mentor that you get. And I realized how badly I needed a mentor in the thing that I was pursuing, which was meekness and biblical submission, which my husband can tell you I'm not doing great. I'm working on it, people. I'm working on it. But like, and I was like, okay, so I'm getting to the root of this stuff, right? And I'm like, why is this hard for me? Why is it hard for me to allow my husband, who wants the best for me, right? And I know that. Why is it hard for me to allow him to take the reins and like just make certain decisions and like innately? It's like I can do it, but I'm not. It doesn't feel natural, right?
Yeah, you're like kind of a type A personality, right? So it's really hard for you as a woman to do that,
right? And I was like, what? Okay, what is this? And I started going into it, and to go back to what you said, I landed at realizing the only examples I've ever seen of marriages have been honestly mostly not super healthy, and almost always I like genuinely can say I don't know one example of a woman that I've seen where I was like, oh, they're like doing biblical submission in the right way, like not from afar I've seen it, but like not in my environmental,
within your 5 group.
No, I was like, I saw people exert their dominance, exert their will. This is what's going to happen. I'm having my family move in. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And then obviously like it was destruction of marriages, right? I've seen the opposite. I've seen men who have allowed their women to completely run the show. And then it's like equally unhealthy, because it's like, this doesn't actually like, sure, you might still be married. Right. And I've seen a lot of this, the older generation, before me, but like, I'm like, you might be married, but like one of you is like miserable at their core. Yeah. Like they might be expressing it, even they like suppress it all, but like suppression isn't help. Right. Like, so anyway, I realized that I needed that mentor to actually be able to break through and go, okay, you've done this, you do it well. I can witness this. This isn't just like you saying, like, a life coach that like is telling you, but they don't have their life together. It's like, what you're talking about, and I need a little more of that so you can speak into my life. So do you have any recommendations for men, like you said, that people blow up your DMs and say like, I wish I was like you? Do you have any recommendations on how they can move forward in that, aside from just do it?
Yeah. I mean, it is that simple. No, but like I have like one dude on my social media who I knew, I worked with him briefly a couple of years ago. He's like, man, where did I screw up? Like, I wish I could have a life like yours. And he said that a couple times on my stuff. And I'm like, dude, it starts with, like, everything has a foundation. It starts with being a good person. If you want a life like mine,
right,
a good life with a happy marriage and an adorable kid, like, you're not going to get that if you're not taking care of yourself.
Come on. You're
not going to get that if you're not making sure that your mental health and everything is taken care of.
Well, and
start there.
You said good person. It's like you're not going to get there if your insides are rooted in bitterness, rottenness. And so it's like,
it's going to fester. It's going to come out.
Right. So to tie into that, I think, especially in relationships, sometimes we have to forgive. Right. So like this man, this gentleman, I don't know, from a can of paint, but he might have something that he doesn't even realize, right? That's deeply rooted in him, and it could be animosity towards. Sometimes, what I've noticed with men, sometimes it's the mom. So it's a mother wound, and then they go, I don't know why I can't keep a healthy relationship, or or whatever. I'm in one, but I'm not happy. And it's like, oh well, it's because you still have mommy resentment that you haven't dealt with.
Yeah.
which you should read my book from the beginning, Unveiling the Ordered Principles to Craft Your Dream Life. But like this, in the book, I talk about that exact thing, how you can go get all the stuff. It wouldn't matter if you get more money. It doesn't matter if you literally had a supermodel wife tomorrow and a Maserati in the driveway. It doesn't matter, because if you don't start from the beginning and get to the root of the issues, it will show up in everything.
Yeah.
It'll show up in everything.
Yep.
So that's likely another thing that, you know.
Yeah. If magically today he had a pretty wife, a cute baby girl, guess what? His life still wouldn't be good. Like having a pretty wife and a healthy relationship and a daughter or a kid or whatever, that doesn't make you happy.
Thank you.
So another thing that my wife and I kind of, and I guess this goes to what men could start with now to look for, you know, a healthy relationship in the future, is my kids' happiness is not my priority. Like my wife's happiness is not my priority.
Come on.
My priority is my happiness, because if I'm happy, I'm a better husband.
That's it.
And if I'm a good husband, I'm gonna be a good dad.
That's it.
And so often you have people who all they look forward to is having their kid, and they have their kid, and then they totally forget that they still have their own lives, and they put their happiness and their goals and their aspirations to the side.
Right.
And then I don't know if it's resentment that they, you know, force upon themselves or other people or whatever, but it's like it festers and it manifests into negativity in your life.
Right.
So if you take care of yourself, everything else will follow. Like I think,
well, you have to get your value from your, like the value has to be rooted in, I'm a child of God. Like I'm a human being that was created. I have a purpose on this earth. I have, that's where it has to start from. It can't be, I'm a mother. I talk about this often, like I don't know how it lands with people. It might land in their hearts really well, but generally if I say it out loud, people go, like kind of mother shit, you know, and I say the exact same thing you say in different words, verbiage, but I essentially am like, my kid is not my number one, that's not my number one priority. For me, my number one priority is a relationship with the Lord, and then to take care of my marriage, and then to take care of my kids, and then to take care of, you know, the businesses, the things that are going to be viable and like keep our existence, and then to take care of my friendship. Like there's an order to this. Yeah. And if I put things out of order, people might say, well, that's mean, or, oh my gosh, like I'll always choose my kid over my husband. Well, I won't. I'm going to tell you why, because I've witnessed what the root or the fruit of that is. And it's never good. I come from a family lineage. Like I mean, that's literally all I've seen in my family is people that have said, oh, I'm going to choose my kid over my husband. And then lo and behold, the husband's gone, and the husband's gone again, and the husband's gone again, and the husband's gone again. And it's like,
and then they have 5 kids.
That's it. That's it. And then the value, like you said, the value gets placed on, I'm a mother to these kids, or I'm a father to these kids. And when your value's there, what happens when the kid grows up?
All their value is put into somebody else, and they don't take care of themselves, and the circle just keeps. And I've
literally watched it, and it's like there's misery. It's like literal, like tangible, physical misery, like that you can see on their countenance everywhere. And it's like, well, that's because you put all of your life value and your value in other human beings that were inevitably going to grow up and leave your house. That doesn't mean I don't love my child, and I would happily take a bullet for my child. Like, of course, these are obvious things, but in terms of getting my value, no, my value comes from the Lord. So, I think that,
and I think even non-religious people could use the same thing.
Absolutely.
It's like you don't have to believe that your value comes from God. You just have to believe that you're valuable, whether you believe in Jesus or Muhammad or whoever the heck you want to believe in. You're valuable. You can make a change for yourself and for people around you.
Yeah, like you just gotta change. You gotta be able to like actually move forward and not have. You can't just carry the attachment of your past with you everywhere and just be like, okay, I'm this thing. Well, I was this thing for 10 years or whatever, 18 years. I was this mother for 18 years. So now, what do I do now? You know, it's like no. Or I screwed up big time. Okay, well, there's redemption in that. You know, there's redemption.
And circling back to like what someone can do to, you know, be happy or whatever. As I said with the foundation, like start with the foundation.
Right.
You're not happy at your job. Okay. Start looking for another job.
Right.
when you find another job that might be able to make you happy, maybe try that job out.
Right.
If that job doesn't work, maybe you should start exercising or eating right.
Right.
Maybe you should cut out bad things in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Porn, probably not great. Alcohol, probably not great.
Right.
Crappy food, probably not great.
Yeah,
Start
but
cutting out.
It's funny that you're saying that, and then like to touch on a point you just said before, but it's like, how do people? We're going off on a tangent here.
Sweet, I like
tangents. But I love tangents. But how do people? How do we define what's right or wrong when there's not God in
mm-hmm.
play?
Mm-hmm. It's hard because there's lots of what is right or wrong. Okay, let's use drugs for example. Mm-hmm. Drugs make you feel pretty good sometimes, right? Mm-hmm. You could do some drugs that make you feel great.
I mean, I don't know.
I've never done drugs.
I'm over here sweating. I don't know about that one.
Drugs could probably make you feel pretty good, but we all know that drugs are probably not great, especially if you use them in excess. If you use them in moderation, maybe they could be great. I know of lots of people who microdose or whatever, and cool. I'm not about it, but whatever floats your boat. So I think, without God, that's a little bit more difficult. And luckily, I'm not a practicing Christian per se. Like I grew up going to church, and it was kind of forced on me early. Yeah. And then like through middle school and high school, I went to church like on my own, mm-hmm. And went to youth and everything. And then afterwards, I kind of fell out. But it's like I still hold pretty much all the same values as most Christians do.
It says train them up in the way that they should go. When they're older, they will not depart from it.
I'm just not necessarily, I don't go to church every Sunday, Right. So yeah, it's a tough question. I mean, what is right and what is wrong?
Because there has to be something that denotes that, right? Mm-hmm. Like, and I think that's where it gets so tricky, mm-hmm. is that we've lived in a super godless environment, and it is now the fruit of that is okay. So we have chaos, mm-hmm. just full blown chaos mm-hmm. in every area of life. In sexuality, in immorality, in perversion, and mm-hmm. everything. Mm-hmm. And it's like everything that is wrong is deemed to be right now. Yeah. And maybe, likewise.
Maybe if the mainstream media is telling you it's good, it's probably not good.
That's usually my rule of thumb, which is why I don't participate in that. So how do you actually feel about what the mainstream media has done to masculinity? Like I said, I think that negativity gets most views. It gets most of our attention, right. And I think that's all it is. It's just people who are demasculating men in America or all across the world, I guess, are just screaming the loudest. That's all it is. Because there are still a lot of killers out there. There's still a lot of dudes who are protectors, who are willing don't
to
mess with me and mine.
Yeah, exactly. Who are willing to do the thing. Like I love. Do you know who Tim Kennedy is? He's an ex-Army Ranger, I believe. Okay. Fought in the UFC. Awesome dude. Now he does like he has sheepdog response, which teaches people how to use firearms and this and that. Anyway. Oh, cool. The other day he was on a podcast, and he was talking about how he is a gentle and an honest and a good man, but like he will rip your face off if you come at his or his kid.
I saw that.
Yeah,
I know what you're talking
and
about.
It's like, dude, there are so many men out there.
I'm married to one of them.
Yeah, exactly.
He's like I'm the chillest dude ever.
Who would do the exact same, but we just don't talk that much about it,
Well, generally, those are the people you got to be like, okay, why you ain't saying that in the corner over there?
Yeah. So mainstream media can do all they want, and they might sway some less masculine men to go that way, but there's still plenty of dudes out there who are ready to just go down whenever the time arises,
So did you have any role models? I know you touched a little bit on like your experience witnessing your parents' marriage, but did you have any role models in your life that helped lead you to this direction of like positive masculinity and like headship?
I think my football coach, Coach Clint McClurg, awesome dude. I haven't talked to him in years, but awesome man, awesome husband, awesome father, at least from the outside looking in as one of his athletes, but we spent, hours and hours and hours together. He was my weightlifting coach Monday, Wednesday, Friday in the mornings before school. Yeah. And then we'd have him for an hour and a half of like PE or whatever during the day. And then he was my football and track coach as well. So like, he was like, right there
Right.
during the developmental years of my life
Right.
where I was deciding who I wanted to be, right? And then my dad, my grandpa,
Nice.
they may not have had great relationships,
Right.
but they were men.
Right.
They were masculine.
And that you
They had
showed you that. Yeah.
tangible attributes that they could use
Right.
for themselves and their family. And then social media started hitting, and then you have like all these other influences that could come out of the woodwork. Like I love Joe Rogan, not because he's this end all be all,
Right.
but because he has this podcast that has hundreds of people on it
Right.
and disseminates all this information that now we can learn from.
Right.
You know, Cameron Haynes just started a podcast. Love his podcast.
Yeah.
He's great friends with Rogan. And the like people, Will Inc.,
Yeah.
all those guys.
Yeah.
Growing up, it was mostly probably my dad, my coach, and then I'll get emotional if I talk about it, but actually my dog.
Really?
Yeah.
Your dog?
Yeah,
I love
dude.
this.
Yeah. So
Like that
we
didn't
talked
cry
about
for Grandpa.
dude. Yeah, he was a tough dude. But like as you stated when you started, like I'm a hunter, always been a hunter,
Yeah.
and I grew up as a hound hunter, and my first dog was a dog named Jumbo. Awesome dog. I still haven't let myself go about it, if you can't tell.
Yeah, I'm like,
But I probably hiked like thousands of miles in the woods behind this dog, like teaching him or getting taught, you know, just out of breath. Like when I thought like I was about to quit, and then the track would heat up and they would go another couple hundred yards. They're like, well, crap, I guess I better go.
We're going, yeah.
And it seriously played a huge impact into the kind of like the work ethic that I have now and the kind of man that I am. Cause I'm like, dude, there's always a little bit more. And it's probably, it's probably not beneficial to me in some extent because like, I'll just push through like pain that I probably, like I had a broken wrist for 3 years throughout high school. Well, 2.5 years before I got surgery. And it's like, cause I was just, you know, that's just who I am. I guess that plays into being masculine maybe, but
Right.
yeah. So probably coach, my dad, grandparents, of course, and then my dog. Yeah. Jumbo.
I love that it was the dog. I get it because I have a horse and I'm like, that horse has taught me a lot.
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
So in terms of young men, do you have any thoughts on like ways that we can like engage them or just help develop them, especially because we're seeing the most fatherless generation of all time, right? But do you have any like thoughts on ways that we can encourage or is that anything you participate in?
Like you have an age group or like just
I just
little
mean
boys?
young men, like adolescents, teens, and and college kids, like people that maybe don't have a strong male role model in their life. Maybe the male role model in their life is there, but it's not a role model. There's somebody that's an alcoholic that beats their mother or non-existent completely to them,
Yeah. So if there's young men listening to this podcast and you don't have a father to look up to or a grandparent or something like that, where are you going to find a positive influence? Probably one of your coaches, just like I did.
Right.
It doesn't matter what age you are. You could probably do maybe your parents are real a-holes and they won't let you play sports. That kind of sucks. Okay.
Right.
Well, do you have any friends that have good relationships with their dads?
Right.
Maybe hang out with them. Maybe see if you can stay the night.
Yeah.
See what their dad's about. See if he actually is a good influence.
Right.
And if you're of the age where you do use social media,
he's like, follow me.
Follow people that you want to be like, because like, what is it? Like begets like.
Yeah.
Right. So if you see something or if you notice that somebody's doing something good, maybe try to emulate that. Try to do that same thing.
I think sometimes though, I can say as a person I'm biracial, but African American, half Caucasian, and what I found in the African American culture, because of the level of father absence, which we could get into that way too deeply on the roots of that and things like that, but I'm not going to go there. I think the main thing that I've recognized though is because there's a lack of fathers in the household, the things that they try to emulate are just what is being perpetuated to them through the media, right? So while I agree with everything you said, I think I would add like, an addendum to that and say like, really try to discern use good discernment on what is something you'd want to emulate.
Mhm.
We don't want to
Mhm.
emulate
Right,
somebody
right.
just because they have
Right.
super nice cars and houses and, half-dressed girl. Like, that's not what we're trying to emulate, right? So if you are like coming to a point or, an age where you're like, okay, I'm a boy and I really want to learn more about masculinity, and maybe I grew up in an environment where these were the things that were glorified, but I'm coming out of that and I just need help getting guidance now, then take on, what that advice that Trevor gave.
Yeah.
But
obviously don't, like, again, it's hard without God, but like
Right.
maybe don't swing towards the bad stuff.
I think we're pulling you back towards the Lord through this
I mean,
podcast. He's
I'll
like, I'm
say-
finding out a lot is hard.
I'll say right now, like, a church is a great place to start. If you want to learn or if you want to be around, masculine men, a church isn't a bad spot. I grew up in a church where there was a lot of farmers. Like, there's a lot of dudes who were masculine men, and they probably had, a decent amount of input in who I am now. But if you are someone living in anywhere in the United States and you don't have a masculine family member or anybody to look up to, but you have the option to go to church, then that's probably not a bad idea.
Well, and I think it's a call to action as well for masculine men, healthy, masculinity, for men that walk in that, to actually start putting their money where their mouth is and like training up the next generation and youth. And that can look different for everyone. So like, Trev, like what you're doing right now, it's like, okay, so nobody would, for me, I would be like floored and I would be like, go you. And also that would be Trevor. But I wouldn't have it on my mind to go, okay, I expect that Trevor's going to donate time every week for X amount of hours and do this. But it's like, okay, he's doing what he can do in the capacity of having a toddler, having a wife, having, firefighting business, hunting, having side business, having all the things. It's like, okay, so you're juggling a lot as it is, but what you can do, which is, okay, I can bring my camera with me. I can post these things that might encourage other men, right? And so I would just say this is a call to action to men, not to enhance your own whatever like status, but to really say, what can I do to start pouring into the younger generation that does not have a healthy example of what masculinity looks like.
After high school, I coached for a little bit. I coached wrestling and football, and that was an awesome time because I actually kind of still knew the kids, right? Yeah. But I was also able to be like more of an influence because they looked up to me a little bit more, you know. And we actually have ride-along students that come to the fire department from the local high school. And every time they show up, I ask them, how old do you think I am? Because it's hilarious. Yeah. And they usually say like 25, so it makes me feel great.
He's like, yes.
Yeah. Yes. And then I'll ask them, other than family members, like, who do you look up to and why? And I'm like, next time you come, you have to tell me why, or who and why.
Right.
They come up with all kinds of different answers. It's kind of wild.
Yeah.
But every time a kid says like Goggins or Haynes or Rogan or something like that, I'm like, heck yeah, they're probably going to be all right. Because I know that they're looking up to good role models.
Right.
You know, they're probably going to, so far they're making good choices, and they're probably going to continue to do the same.
Right.
And I wish I had more free time to like devote to like coaching, for example, or whatever else, but I'm so busy.
Yeah, but that's what I was saying is like, it's just knowing like, okay, what's in my capacity? What can I actually do right now in this season? It doesn't mean that forever. I'm like positive knowing you that you're going to be a coach again one day, or maybe a mentor or whatever. Right. But like, I've had to do that for myself with women, younger women, and say, okay, what can I do in this season? So right now I can do youth ministry and I can take the girls and do fun stuff. We go to the horses and hang out and do stuff. But like, I also know I won't be able to do that forever. There's going to be seasons where it'll look different, the way in which I'm pouring out to them, right? So it's just knowing.
Life is all about seasons. Like right now, well, we kind of just got through my wife and I finally just got through like a really busy wedding season for her.
Right.
I'm doing tree jobs all the time on the side of being a fireman. So I work 2 days on, 4 days off. So on 2 of the 4 days off, I have my daughter while my wife works, and I do projects around the house, you know, and then the other 2 days I get some time to go hunting, or like this year I guided some bear hunts, and it's like pretty soon your schedule's done, you know, and we have this one little kid in the neighborhood that comes over to my house while I'm out and about. I think he's like 7 or 8, I don't know, and I don't have the time to go coach or anything right now.
Right.
But when he comes over to my house, I have the ability to like be a good influence on him.
Absolutely.
Like, hey, you want to get in wood for me? I'll give you $5.
Yeah. Yep.
You want to gather rocks? I'll give you like $20.
Right.
And here's why.
Right.
Oh, you left the rake there. You can't leave the rake there because I might run it over.
Right.
You know, and you have to make sure when you use a tool, you put it back. So like that, because I don't know his parents.
Yeah.
They seem like decent people.
Yeah.
But he's coming over to my house for some reason. He's not coming over because he hates me.
Right.
He's coming over because he's the youngest of 3 or 4 kids. He's getting picked on just like I was.
Right.
And he's looking for someone who will, be a good influence, whether he knows it or not.
Well, and it's crazy how precious it is. What I've learned with, especially like, I don't know how the age of this young boy, but I find that the younger kids and the younger adolescents, the youth that I work with is like 12 to 14 and or 11 to 14, I should say. But it's crazy because they will actually come to you. Like, I didn't have to do that much. It was like, just show up. Like, you know, that you hear like, build it and they will come. It's like, it was like that. It was like, just go sign up and go to the youth thing. And then it was like, they just flocked to me and they're like, hey, I want to do this with you. Or can you do this? And can you invite me? I want to go with your, I want to do this. I want to do that. Let's go to the, festivals. Let's do. And it's like, I didn't have to do much, just being there. Yeah.
Most kids don't want to listen to their parents or their grandparents.
Right.
Like they're with them all the time. They hear them all the time. Don't do that. Don't do this. Blah, blah, blah. They want to listen to people that they look up to. One of the other questions I ask, or one of the things I talk about with the kids that come do ride-alongs with us, because they're there to learn about the fire engine and the firehouse and running calls and this and that. And that is important, obviously. That's the whole purpose that they're coming there. Right. But on a side note, like, I'd like to guide them a little bit. And I tell them, like, straight up, you guys don't want to listen to your parents.
Right.
I know. Unless you're the parents doing a good job and then you actually like your parent. Most parents, unfortunately, don't do a very good job. And most kids, unfortunately, don't want to listen to their kids or don't want to listen to their parents. So if I have an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours with these kids one day, like, I'm going to try to be a good influence on them. And I ask them, like, do you drink? They're all in high school. I'm like, do you drink? And they'll be honest with you. I'm like, you're not getting in trouble. I'm just serious. I'm questioning. They're like, oh yeah, here and there. I'm like, okay, if you're going to drink, I get it. Everybody in high school does it.
Not everybody. I didn't. I didn't. Somebody, I was hanging out
with bad
influence
not
kid,
everybody,
she
whatever.
tried to get me to drink a Smirnoff, and I did it. And I remember one Smirnoff ice, and I was 3 sheets to the wind. And then I put the Smirnoff ice back into the dishwasher.
Oh,
because I thought, well, I just didn't even know how it worked.
Yeah.
So, yes, I did. Not all kids drink.
Yeah, but most do. And especially kids in rural Northern California. Right. And so I tell them, if you're going to, at least be smart about it. Because, like, I don't want to have to come peel your body off the side of the road, because we have done that, plenty of times. And it's just one of those little things. Like, we talk about whether it's drinking or what they want to do in the future and how they want to get there, or what they want to do for college, or why they want to do that for college. Why are they in the fire class at the high school? Probably because it's kind of easy, so they get like an easy grade, but it's also a lot of fun. Yeah. And so I think in terms of helping people be, or being a good influence for younger men to learn how to be masculine, that's a great place to start. Like, I'll take them, like, especially if they stay a little later in the day, we get to work out later in the day. I'm like, let's go do a workout. Come on, we're gonna do it. And they always feel great afterwards. And it's like, well.
I know, that's how I'm trying to get myself to remember that. Like,
it's hard, dude. It's hard.
Here's the thing. I'm like one of those people that generally most things are not hard for me. And I actually was saying a prayer of thanksgiving to the Lord, not on Thanksgiving Day, just a Thanksgiving prayer. And I was like, thank you, Jesus, for making me so different. Like, because most things really are, like, just generally, I wouldn't say that they come without strife, but it's just naturally easy for me. And I was like, that's actually a really big blessing and gift, because most people aren't built like that. But working out is not one of those things.
Yeah, no, that's difficult.
For me, I'm like, that's my kryptonite.
Yeah. And luckily, like, my wife understands, like, that's part of our compromise and being in a healthy relationship, is she totally knows that, like, me working out is kind of important. Like, if
it's
I don't
important to you that she works out too, because you'd be like, Anna.
Yeah. I 100% tell my wife that she should work out, because she's always had an issue with acne. Her skin's better. Always. Her libido's better. Yep. She's happier. She doesn't complain more. The same for me. Like, when I work out, like, I'm happier. I'm a better dad. I'm a better husband. I'm better at work. I get better sleep. All the above. You know?
Well, we use, I think a lot of it is like at the end of the day when talking about health, I think we use a lot of things as like crutches, you know? So for me, I was like, okay, what has been my crutch in this season? Because there's always a crutch and there's always a season. So it's not necessarily like what has been my crutch my whole life. It's what's been my crutch in this season. Okay, for me, it was coffee. I was like, I can just get this coffee with 75 gallons of calorie probably, you know, but it tastes so good, you know. And I'm like, and then I'm just gonna make an excuse because it's cold outside. So I'm like, I'll just have a mocha, you know, and doing that, or then okay, well, it's holidays, so then I can eat whatever I want. And it's like, okay, sure, maybe in moderation, you know, in portion for like a very special event or day, but to throw it all out the window the second October hit and like fall hits, I'm like, it's time. And you know, and it was like every year on repeat. I'm like, Brittany, you gained 20 pounds like in a 3-month span. Like what just happened? And it's like, oh, well, because you were giving yourself permission to really comfort where you should have been going to the comforter. I should have been going to God with whatever those, because it wasn't just like, oh, I just like this.
Because a good coffee makes you feel good.
Yeah, but it's like I'm masking something else. So it's like, okay, I'm getting the coffee. Exactly. When am I getting the asking yourself the questions. When am I getting the coffee? I'm getting the coffee when I'm tired. Why am I tired? Oh, because I'm overworked or I was stressed or I'm going to get the chocolate croissant. Not because I need a chocolate croissant, right? But I'm getting the chocolate croissant because somebody just annoyed me actually, and I'm just using it as a crutch right now, right? So it's like paying attention even to those things when it comes to health. And a lot of people, everybody's different. I know because I am a beneficiary of good genetics, as my husband loves to say. He's like, you are a very lucky human because I eat more than my husband does, and it's insane. And like, he couldn't save a pound to save his life. I can't, like, you know, like it's just like crazy because I can eat terrible for like a year, and I'm like, maybe I gained 20, but like, you know, like that's where it maxes out. And we were just talking about this, but I think a lot of times it's not just health. It's not just what are you eating or what are you doing or whatever. It's like, it goes back to what you said. It's like your emotional health, your mental health, because the manifestation, right? Like you said, my wife works out, her skin clears up too. There's all these other things that come with it, but it's like for her, it might look like working out. For someone else, it might look like you need to go to therapy. No, for real. Like, I mean, 100%. You know, like it might be like you need to actually go get to the root of the problem because you're using all these other things to mask it. I remember doing which I since have been delivered from, you know, I'm going to go evangelical on you, but I had done yoga for many years and I've renounced covenant, so don't worry, guys. But I did, and I remember before that I did Pilates, and my cousin who saw all the demons operating in me because I was just like a mess for like most of my life because I had a lot of stuff, and that I witnessed, all the stuff that I was, you know, participating in, and he said, I was like, I'm going to go to my Pilates class. It makes me more zen. And he's like, no, it doesn't.
Worse even, probably.
He straight was like to the jugular. He's like, no, it doesn't. He goes, I think you couldn't make this up. He goes, I think you need to find something else because that's not working for you, honey. And I was like, thanks. So then I started doing like yoga at the time, and that helped a bit, you know. And he's like, this one's better. Whatever this is better. Then I found Jesus. Everybody's like, thank God. You know? But anyway, it's just super funny. So I want to close out by having you do the challenge of the week. So I always do a challenge after every episode. So whatever you feel like it should be, it can be in regards to relationships, in regards to masculinity. It can be in regards to health, hunting. I don't care. But just give them some sort of challenge to do this week.
Challenge this week. Probably just be a better person. Like if you feel the urge to like cuss someone out on the highway, maybe don't. Maybe good. Chill.
Maybe chill.
Like someone cuts you off in the store, just chill. Because I think there's a lot of negativity and there's a lot of BS that's going on in the world.
Right.
And the more you can just be like, you know what, that probably doesn't actually. Oh, here's a really good one. Don't let yourself get upset by anything that is on the internet.
Right. That's good.
Don't let it, like, it's not going to affect you. You're the one that's letting it affect you. Don't let it affect you. Right. That's the best I can do.
I love that. I think that's a really good one. And also, like, get off the internet. Like, I mean, I generally just, like, post what I need to post, and then I don't look. And people are like, you need to watch my story. I'm like, I'm barely on the internet. That's why I, like, I think Anna would know this, actually. I delete the app from my phone. So I'll post, and then I delete the app off my phone. So then it's not
It's not
what do
there.
they call it? Like a tick,
Mhm.
like where people just go, oh, I'm bored. I'm
Oh,
just
yeah,
gonna pull
I
my
totally get
Instagram
it.
out, right?
Mhm.
And I don't do it because I'm just like, it's not on the phone
Mhm.
when I'm not posting
Yeah.
something. So I usually miss a lot. But when I come back on and I'm intentional about wanting to see,
Yeah.
then I'm.
Don't
then I'm
worry,
back.
she still loves you guys.
Yes, I'm like, it's not personal, trust me. But okay,
Yeah.
cool. That was a
Awesome.
great challenge. Thank you
I
so
appreciate
much.
it. I appreciate it. It was fun.
It was wonderful to have you on,
Yeah.
and I hope this blesses the people. Thank you guys so much for listening to Let Them Hear podcast, and don't go ahead and subscribe if you did not yet. Hit the like button if you're watching this on YouTube, and if you haven't already, pick up a copy of my newest book, From the Beginning: Unveiling the Ordered Principles to Craft Your Dream Life, and we'll talk to you soon.